All right, today I want to look at modeling a scene. So this is Computer Animation 1, CSC 187, and in it we're going to be looking for scenes to model, a tonal scene. So I have one that I'm going to be doing. So I have my basic view space here, my basic Maya scene, but I have created a project folder. So everyone will be creating a projects folder, and you want to give it a unique name. And my unique name is going to be in honor of one of my favorite drummers, and it's Neil Peart. And if you're familiar with Rush, they have a lot of great album covers. And this album cover here will work well as a project, a tonal project, tonal structures project. It's basically a room with a window with some light coming in on the floor. And what I want to do is I want to create the basics of this using basic modeling. So this is like a project one where I'm going to be blocking in this room, and I'm going to be blocking in these basic objects, these TVs in this space, and then put them in with generic kind of objects, and then begin working on each one of them as individual models themselves. All right, so I'm going to have a reference image that I'm going to set up kind of over to the side here. I'm not going to bring this into my scene. I'm just going to kind of look at it as a reference as I go. I could bring it into my scene, but I'm not going to right now. So I just want to kind of have it here. On this side, I'm going to close up everything. So I have my outliner. You can see I have nothing here. So what I'm going to begin with is just a basic room space, which will be just some walls and a floor and that sort of thing. Then I'll replace that later on. So I can do this in a number of ways. I could do it with just creating a simple cube. I'm going to scale this up a little bit. And since this is just a floor and two walls, I'm going to, for now, go into my objects, take the faces of these objects here, and I'm going to delete it. Now I haven't done this already, so I'm doing this on the fly because I want you to kind of see the workflow. Now notice that my faces here are all black. That's because I'm seeing the inside of the object, and this is the outside. So what I want to do is I want to reverse those, because I want the normals, which are pointing out so that the camera and light shine on the outside of this box. I'm going to flip it so it goes in so it's not black. So I'm going to go to Mesh Display, Normals, and I'm going to say Reverse. And so now they're on the inside. So now I have this simple little room. And I'm not really going to worry about this yet. What I really want to do is just kind of get a space laid out. So I'm going to kind of block in my window, and I'm just going to use a simple piece of geometry, and I'm going to name that this piece of geometry, and I may change its color just to help me with that, just in the simplest way. So this will be the window, because I'm not going to really try to model anything yet. I'm just going to just kind of block in space. So what I want to also, before I kind of get too deep into this, I want to set up kind of a camera that will act as it'll act as my camera in the scene, kind of looking at this wall. So I'm going to go into Panels, Perspective, New, and I'm going to call this camera my Shot Cam 1. And this is going to sit here in my scene. So what I want to do is kind of go to a two-parter here. So Panels, Perspective, Shot Cam. This is the camera. And over here is Perspective. So here's my Shot Cam kind of right there looking at the scene. So what I want to do is I'm going to change the controls on that. So I'm going to double click on my tool. I'm going to say use the object orientation, so that I can zoom this camera straight into this scene. Here I'm going to show you what that looks like. So I'm going to zoom it in, and I'm also going to put on wireframe shaded so I can kind of see all these different parts. So what I want to do is I'm going to move this camera into my scene a little bit. Oops, not it. And I want to kind of line it up so I can look at this corner, kind of how I'm doing. I'm going to also kind of rotate the camera a little bit so it's a little bit more like so. Let me bring it down, maybe bring it in. And I'm going to go into this scene a little bit. What I really want to do is kind of hide some of this stuff. Things are a little bit skewed. And what I want to do is go into View, and I'm going to say, well, actually, I can just do it over here. I can turn on my View. And I want to make sure, I have several things in place. I'm going to go up to my render settings because I need the actual image size. So when I'm shooting a picture, I want to frame it in based on the size of the image, or based on the size of the image. I want to make sure it's going to be a JPEG, and I need to go to the actual size. And 1024 is a nice size. It's not super huge. It doesn't take that long to render. And I'm going to say View, and I'm going to say camera settings. I'm going to go vertical so I can see this. And what I want is my resolution gate here. So it's 1024 by 768. So here's my scene size. I want to make sure I get that. And what I want to look at is basically, here's this window. I'm going to move this down a little bit. And I'm just going to kind of estimate the spacing and stuff. I'm not trying to do too much. I'm going to have my wood trim down there, the corner of the room. Whoa. Maybe a little bit something like, this is almost, it's not quite center. So I'm just going to kind of back this off a little bit. And that's not horrible. Okay, so I'm going to raise this up a little. So this gives me kind of an idea, of what I'm going to do. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually lock that. So I'm going to say translate, rotate, scale. I'm going to say right click, and I'm going to say lock selected. That way I can't accidentally move that. Control Z. Looks like I totally guess I didn't lock it. Go back down here, set this up, and I'm going to do this. So here's about like my shot. It may be a little bit lower like this. And I may adjust that. So select these, right click, lock selected. Notice that these are all grayed out. Now I shouldn't be able to move that. I should not be able to move my camera. I should not be able to move my camera. All right. All right, what I want to do now is go into my other perspective. So I'm going to kind of be looking at this shot here as my main kind of setup, and as I am over here, and I can kind of, oops, what I want to do is make sure I have my camera and lock selected. All right. And what I want to do is make sure I didn't select my other camera. All right, so that's locked. Here we go. So I should be good. Now see how my controls are grayed out? When I click on this, see how these are colorful? These are grayed because they're locked. So, and I did that by selecting my object and saying lock selected. So that's very handy, so I can't actually screw that up. All right, so what I want to do is, in this scene, I'm just going to start kind of blocking. So my window is kind of big, and this is just rough and dirty. This is not 100% because, again, I'm going to kind of see how it fits. So I want to move this up. See, I accidentally locked my my window, so I want to unlock that so I can actually move it. So sometimes I'm going to widen that because it's a fairly wide window. And this is just to kind of block in that space a little bit. So I'm okay with that for now. And I'm going to bring in my chair. So I'm going to block in a little chair here and this. Now, just to make things a little bit easier to see, I'm going to add a material to this just to help change. Actually, here's what I'll do. I'm going to right click on that object and I'm going to say assign new material, and I'm going to go into Maya and I'm going to say, I'm going to give it a Lambert, and in Lambert 2 I'm just going to call that window material, and I can change the color of it a little bit, so I can make it a little darker, a little lighter. I'm just going to make it a little lighter, that way I can see it. I'm going to right click my cube here. I'm going to go to my perspective view. And I'm going to right click my cube and I call this room. So I'm going to call this room. And I'm going to right click on it and I'm going to say assign new material. And I'm going to choose Maya and I'm going to choose Lambert and I'm going to call it room matte, ROMMAT, capital. And I can change that color. I can make it darker or lighter, or I can change it into some other color if I want. Now, what I want to do is, I'm going to hide this camera because it's kind of annoying and in the way. And if I want to, I can just go and I can go into display, and I can go into my, say, show or hide. I can say hide all, and I can say cameras, and I can hide that. And that's just, if I want to bring it back, I can just go to display, show cameras, or say show all, or say show last hidden. I could just say camera. So I could undo and take that back. So here's that space. So I'm just going to add in some basic geometry to kind of block in these little things. So I'm going to create a little cube, and I'll call this TV1, TV2, TV3. So here's TV1. So I'm going to create a little cube, and I'm going to call it TV1, just as a little, just a little object to kind of block it in. So it's going to be up here, and this is where I'm going to kind of want to split this scene. Let's scale this down a little bit. And it's kind of at an angle, so I might want to just do this. And this is where, make sure I'm working in the not in the world, but in the object. Notice that this is set up to be according to the world, but I want it to be according to the object. So I'm going to double click on my tool, which is down here, and say, if I go to the world settings, it's off, and if I go to the object settings, notice that it kind of aligns with it. And same thing for that one. I'm going to say object. What I want to do is just kind of scale it down. Kind of move this panel. And I'm going to line it up against the wall here. That's kind of parallel with the wall. So I'm just going to use my image as my reference. And I'm just going to move it back into this kind of corner space and figure out about. I'm going to frame it in. Hide this, and I'm going to scale it up a little bit, put it down. This is just mostly to kind of just block in that space to get a little bit of sense of proportion and kind of what it's all about. Don't have to worry about too much. So here's my little TV base. So I'm just thinking about the base here, and then what I'll do, maybe a little more narrow, something like that. And then I'm going to control duplicate it, and then I'm going to just kind of make myself a little bit of a TV. It's a little bit bigger, a little bit more square, and I'm going to bring that up and just kind of maybe put it there. like so. And the proportions aren't exactly right, and they're kind of pointing at the camera a little bit, so I might grab both. And it's a little farther away from the wall, so this is where I will want to move according to the world. And maybe just move things a little more centered in the world there. Okay, and a lot of this stuff I'm going to just duplicate. So this is going to be kind of my TV1, actual TV1, I'll just say top. This is my TV1 base. And what I can do really is I can simply just take that, Control D, duplicate it. I'm going to move it and change it a little bit, maybe a little bit off. So this is going to be, change these proportions. So here is going to be TV2, only the base. So I'm just going to simply take this, pull it out, kind of go a little bit like so. I'm going to make this a little smaller. And for now, it's a little bit like the top of this is kind of in the middle there, so I'm just going to kind of do this. And I'm just, like I said, I'm just going to rough this in. This part is kind of like the upper part of this. And I may, oops, I can't. I'm going to go into my perspective view, and I may end up raising this up a little bit. But for now, it's got some legs. And then I have another object that's down here on the floor. So I'm just going to take this cube. So this is going to be TV2 top, TV2 top, and this is going to be TV2 base. Okay, and I can give these all different materials if I want. I can assign them the same material. So I'm going to right click and say assign existing material, and I'm going to give them the window material just so I can see them easily. Then I'm going to say Control duplicate, and this is going to be the big box that's on the floor down here. And I'm going to just kind of move that out, and it's going to be down here, and I'm going to just kind of make it a little bigger, a little fatter, and move it a little bit closer to the corner and down. And it's kind of under that, so I may have to raise these. I think I'm going to have to raise these up. Because the edge of this, I'm kind of using the edges of this as my guide. So here's the, so if this is the bottom of the window, this is kind of lined up with the bottom, so the bottom of this, so I may raise this up a little bit more. Halfway in the room, so this is kind of halfway in the room, so halfway in the room, I'm just going to kind of estimate something like this. Now here's where I might go into vertex mode and just grab these and just pull them down a little bit. And this is not too bad. It feels a little high to me, so these are the kinds of things I might just kind of continue to. I also need to make the move this down a bit more, so I may do that. And this is the kind of stuff that you do. You just kind of get these things to feel right in the scene. And then this box here is going to kind of line up with the angle of this corner, so I may move that back a little bit, maybe move everything over just a touch, and just move everything kind of just something like that. Move this back a little bit. All right, so now I have these basic things, and we'll make room for that chair to go right here. And so for the chair, I'm just going to steal this, because the chair is going to be the bottom of this. See how I'm lining it up with this? So the bottom of the chair is kind of lining up with the bottom of this. So for now, oops, Control D, and I'm going to move that out and call that the chair base. or the seat, or the base. I'll just call it the seat, chair seat. And this is going to get moved till about here. And this is the back kind of pointing towards that. So I'm going to just kind of rotate this a little bit. It's kind of pointing right at the camera. And then I can kind of scale that down, and maybe pull it out a little bit. And it's going to be kind of right, that back of it is kind of right here in the scene. And I'm going to get my world, and I go back to object because I want to move it according to its own orientation. So I'm going to do something like this. Now my image is going to be a little bit different because I am going to be using this as a eulogy or for Neil Peart, because Neil Peart just died when I'm making this video. So he just died on January 17th, and this is going to have his picture on it. So I'm basically going to have a picture, instead of a human, I'm going to have a picture of Neil Peart right here with the light shining on it and all of that. So it'll be kind of like my own little thing, you know, out of respect for his what he's done in the music business, and as a drummer, I appreciate what he's done. So that's kind of the whole purpose for this. All right, so I've kind of got things the way that I want them. It may not be totally perfect, but the idea is, here's my scene. This is where I'm going to be doing my work, and this is kind of me blocking things in. Now I can put the details into this chair and all that, but I'll get to that a little bit later. I could just throw in a little bit of stuff just to do a very quick little chair. And I could grab some things just to kind of make it feel more like a chair in my scene, but I certainly wouldn't need to. That's for sure. There we go. And then from the bottom, do the same thing. Let's kind of make it feel like a chair. This gives the look of it anyway, even though it may not be perfect. So I'm going to grab my faces on the bottom here and here and here and here. I'm going to try a quick trick. Make sure there's nothing else selected. If I scale these out, I'm going to try a trick. I don't know if it'll work. If I scale them out, it'll just kind of do that. It's kind of just a quick way to also scale out the face. So that's actually a no-no, but this is just a prop. So I don't care so much about that. But here is my kind of like my setup, and I need a lot more floor space, so I need some more floor space down here, but since I need to move it that way a little bit, so he's a little bit more in front of the window, so I'm going to go into object mode, and I'm going to grab my chair. I'm going to go back to the world, and I'm going to move it in this direction a little bit. So it's kind of making a triangle to these things. So I'm going to try to make a triangle, and he's right there, pretty darn close to that window. So I may have to move this stuff around a little bit. It's got the chair pretty close, a lot of floor space, so I may have to make some changes, but it's not perfect. So just got him crossing the line there a little bit. Maybe this wall needs to come in a little closer. I need to back off, move this up, maybe a little bit closer to this. A little bit more like, maybe a little bit more like this. move it down. So proportionately, the middle of the TV would be about the middle of this top of the chair rails. So I may do something like this. Gives me floor space, gives me TV, and this gives me the basic setup of my scene. So I would call this blocking in, and I would put some things in here. So I'm going to add some trim. So my baseboards are going to go down here, and I can quickly do that with just a cube and just scaling it down. So my trim, and all of this stuff will have to be actually modeled. But right now, this has some really nice, and I can look at this, kind of make an estimate about how thick it is. It's pretty darn thick. And if I look at the top of this in the middle of the leg, so I may scale it down just a touch, and then just simply pull it out, and I'm just kind of doing it in camera view, which would not necessarily be the best thing. Control D, rotate around Y 90 degrees, and then put it along the back wall, because I know I'm moving in world space. So here's my trim along the back. I'm looking for that back edge to disappear. See how it disappears when it cuts through the geometry? So there's my trim, and I can see that. And here's my window. And if I wanted to do some more cheats, I could just, I'm going to call this trim. So I'll call it baseboard. Baseboard back. And I'm going to copy that. Baseboard back. Come here, copy. And then I'll say baseboard left. Baseboard left. All right. And now I'm going to steal my baseboard, control duplicate, and I'm going to call this window, window base. So, and I'm going to put that right about middle of the chair. So it actually is going to come down a little bit like that. So I'm going to scale it in, I'm going to move it over, and I'm going to scale it up. And I'm just kind of, just kind of blocking it for this picture. I'll go into my perspective view, and I can kind of see what I'm doing here. I'm going to push it against the wall. So there's my trim, or there's my window casing. So I'm going to do another one. Control D. I'm going to rotate around Z, 90. I'm going to move it over. To kind of overlap. I go into my wireframe so I can kind of see it a little bit, and I'm going to leave a little bit of an edge for this. This is going to stick out. This is going to go up, and I don't need to see all of that, but I will want to make sure I have enough details. So I've got that, and then the casing will actually be Control D, rotate around Y, rotate Y 90. Oops, I don't want to do that. Control Z. Get that. Put that back. I'm going to rotate around Z 90. Or sorry, X, and I'm going to move that in space. Let me go here, and this is just going to be that window casing. This just kind of makes it fit here. Again, now I can take this and delete that, and I can kind of see now the shape of that window, and I'm just trying to get that in there like so. Anyway, it doesn't have to be too much. Just a couple little edges there. All right. Now here is my basic scene, and it's looking pretty good. Look here. Again, these are just my rough objects. Here's my TV. Here's my base. If I want to, I can control duplicate this and scale it down. And scale it out a little bit. And put that down like so. So I can see that. I can just kind of mark it. Everything else, this is going to have legs. This is going to be there. There's no pictures on the wall. There's just a window. There's a window frame. There's going to be an outlet down here. So I'm going to call this TV1 base. That's okay. Then I'll have the outlet, which I will just simply take this and say Control D, and I'm going to call this outlet, and I'm going to rotate it. This one's going to go into my perspective view, and I'm going to go, actually I'm going to go into my, I'm going to put this against the wall. Obviously I'm going to scale it down, and so I'm going to kind of rotate it. Looks like I need to go -90 to get it perfect, and I'm going to scale it very thin, and obviously very small, like an outlet. And this kind of will help me block in all of these basic things. So I can go into my scene, oops, go into this scene, and it's going to be basically from the edge of this straight down, so the edge of that, I'm going to just kind of look at this, move that straight down, and I'll scale it down a little bit more. Something like that, and then I'll push it back just so it sticks out a little bit. And then what I'll do is I'll make individual boards for the floors, and then individual panes for that. So this is basically roughing in my scene for my image. So I'm going to stop there, and I would call this a pretty good start for my rough.